Well-being Leadership Talks. Розмови про характер, надію і баланс.
Друзі, всім привіт! Мене звати Ярослав Назар. Сьогодні ми з вами в Українському, католицькому університеті на щорічній вже в четвертій конференції Well-being Leadership Conference. В рамках цієї конференції ми балакаємо, ми слухаємо, ми дізнаємося більше про лідерство і про психічне здоров'я. Загалом така основна тема цьогорічної конференції – це характер, надія та баланс в лідерстві, що вони означають в рамках лідерства, як їх віднайти і як їх розвивати. Тому сьогодні будемо багато говорити про це. В нас декілька чудових лекторів, спікерів, гостей, перш за все, які нам будуть розповідати, ділитись своїм досвідом. І ми спробуємо з вами з якихось складних речей розібрати їх на простіші, зрозуміліші, доступніші і, напевно, спробуємо оформити якийсь план дій для кожного з нас в ці непрості часи. Ну і важливо, що хочу додати, що ця конференція ініційована Центром лідерства УКУ, реалізована в партнерстві з бізнес-школою УКУ, Інститутом психічного здоров'я УКУ та Ian Ignatovich Institute for Leadership в Ivy Business School, Канада. І сьогодні наш перший гість Дуже багато про нього насправді написано і сказано, але коротко для себе, для вас, щоб ви розуміли, хто в нас буде. В нас буде Вільям Неш, колишній директор психологічного здоров'я Морської піхоти США, нагороджений Бронзовою зіркою за службу в Іраку. Досліджував ПТСР у миротворчих місіях ООН, розробляв доктрини психологічного здоров'я для армії США та НАТО загалом. Вільям, hi.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. It is a pleasure for you visiting Ukraine in this time, for the second time, as I know, for the second conference, so we are glad to have you here again.
Thank you. Дякую.
As we've talked before the start of the recording, I said that for each speaker today, as the topic of the conference is about leadership and well-being, right? So I just wanted to ask how you personally define what is leadership. What are the characteristics of a leader?
Well, a leader, in my view, is a member of a team who takes responsibility for the functioning of the team, for not only ensuring that the team meets its goals, whatever those might be, whatever products, whatever services, whatever, but also, obviously, and this is the theme of the conference, takes responsibility for the welfare of the team members. Mm-hmm. So leaders are not necessarily always official. They can be unofficial. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if a team has an ineffective leader, other members of the team will step forward and take on that responsibility. So a leader is not the person who's designated responsible. It's the person who takes responsibility as their own personal necessity.
Mm-hmm. But for the whole team, right?
But for the whole team, exactly. Mm-hmm. In general systems theory, which is a very old way of understanding how systems work, a leader is a coordinating interface between systems. So the team is one system. Whatever culture or community or industry that team is contributing to is another system. Mm-hmm. And the person who's in between, a member of both systems at the same time, is the leader. So for example, in military organizations, which I'm very familiar with, a battalion or brigade commander obviously is a leader of the team that they are the commander of. But as a commander, they're a member of another team, a team of commanders reporting to whoever, to the public. So that's the other piece to me that's very helpful to think about is coordinating interface between systems.
So like the proxy who knows the responsibility of others and can coordinate it for your team, for your own team.
And move information between systems. That's crucial. Managing information flows is one of the most basic leadership responsibilities.
Right. Okay. You've also mentioned that a leader is not just responsible for the functioning of the team, right? But also for the welfare of the team, right?
Correct.
Is it not like two different things to manage, because when you like managing the let's say communications for the team to function properly, right? So you exchange information, you give information, you clarify what to do, when to do, and how to do. What is the goal to achieve for a leader, and like the stack of responsibilities in the welfare situation for the team, right? Like to handle the mental side of the team for the leader.
So I think you're right that if I understood your question, that I think a lot of people do see these two different requirements of leadership as separate. You have the requirement to get the job done, right? The mission. And sometimes the mission requires that you harm people along the way, that you use them up, that maybe they're going to die or be injured. And sometimes the mission requires that. And it's easy to see the well-being piece as separate, as maybe a secondary goal. But I think one of the great values of this conference is bringing together management science and mental health science to look at what are the commonalities, and the greatest, most important common feature to both of those aspects of leadership is that ultimately the functional capacity, the power of the team to meet its mission is in direct relationship to the well-being of the members, right? That the more your team members are suffering, the more they're stressed, the fewer resources they have. It's always a balance between what are the challenges you're facing and what resources do you have. So I think that one of the messages of this conference is that you cannot be the best team for whatever it is you do unless you have the best well-being, and you're attending to that and making sure people feel cared about, they feel safe, they feel they're contributing. Spiritual, social aspects of team membership are necessary for the optimal functioning of the team.
Okay, got you here. But just to dive deeper, you've mentioned that a leader is responsible for this side too, and it's crucial to maintain this. Well, I will say like spiritual unity, like the confidence in each of the members of the team, right? But the mission ends, and you may have some, I don't know, vacation or some rest period. Then you have another mission, right? And as you mentioned, as a leader during some of the missions, you may need to give and take some orders, right, that may harm other people in your team,
yes,
right? They may die here, right? And this PTSD effect on a leader and how to work with it, right? How to make it from the trauma to the power, right? What are the tips, or even we may say, I don't know, not tips, but maybe there is some roadmap of how to manage it for a leader, right? To be, again, I don't know, mentally refreshed and ready for the new mission, right? And not to suffer from PTSD. Are there any, I don't know, things that you need to do, you need to remember as a leader, and how to work with that?
Well, you're touching on something that I think is one of our greatest shortcomings in terms of management and mental health science and leadership science, in that the members of organizations that I think get the least support in these areas are the leaders. That the leader is the person who brings resources to the team, who shares resources, who attends to the welfare, but there may be no one looking out for the welfare of the leader, no one providing resources for the leader. And so I think leaders, because of this, because of the responsibilities, because the buck stops there, because there may be no one else to make these difficult decisions but you, that you may be left as a leader with a lot of emotional baggage, a lot of emotional trauma, especially moral injury trauma, which can happen anytime you're unable to meet your moral obligations. Anytime you feel like you cannot help but betray someone's trust. And so I think one of the greatest areas where we need to improve is looking out for the welfare of the leaders. In the military, my personal experience over 40 years, military leaders, because of these responsibilities, because of the moral injuries that they may face day after day, and at the same time, as a leader, you feel like you're not supposed to get resources for yourself. You're supposed to be stoic and powerful, and that's the image you want.
Give, not take, even.
Give, not take, exactly. So we need a better culture to feed and take care of our leaders, to monitor them. Peer support for leaders, you don't see that much, but so these are huge problems we have yet to tackle.
Okay, but maybe we may try. So again, speaking from your personal experience, over 40 years in military, right? And you saw what happens to those military leaders, right? With those baggage of moral trauma, right? They are
Correct.
carrying. So what really works? I think it's maybe more personalized from person to person, from leader to leader, but maybe there are some general things that help to, go beyond this moral baggage, moral trauma that they are carrying, to go to the, to the power side, to use it as a catalyst, to do more, to do better. I don't know even how to put it in words better, but maybe some tips you may share, or some roadmap what to do to help those leaders overcome those moral baggages for themselves.
Right. Well, first of all, I don't have any magical solutions here. Obviously, this is something the whole world is working on. But I think one of the things that's most clear is that perhaps the single most important prerequisite for healing is attachment and emotional connection and social and spiritual support. So the greatest enemy of well-being is isolation. And it's very easy for leaders to become very isolated because they don't have a support team, and they can't go to their own team for support. So finding some other place to have that attachment, caring, it's love. It's all about love, really. And so I don't think there's, I don't think that necessarily does much good to talk about the horrible things that happen. Sometimes remembering and talking about traumatic experiences just makes them worse. But what makes them better is social, spiritual support, making sense out of, and this is obviously a really tough challenge, finding meaning, because it's first of all, it's the connection and support. Then it's the meaning making of this is why we paid these prices. And that's what's going to help the wound heal over time, that to be able to feel that this cost was worth the benefit.
So to find love helps to recharge, and love in all different aspects of love,
Yes.
right? Different representations of love. So social, networking, find meaning in what was done and for what it was done, like find the meaning for the cost. Okay, that's about the leader. But if we even dive deeper into this, we've already talked about that the leader is like alone in this situation to fight with PTSD and to work with PTSD, right? And we've mentioned the team. And the team has eventually a leader as this, I don't know, love or mechanism of support, right? During the PTSD period. So from the perspective of a leader to the team, right? How you help your team to cope with PTSD. So maybe what signs do you see and how you should react as a leader when you see those signs?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, the leader is not going to heal anybody's PTSD. So just get that out of your head. So what the leader can do and should do, I believe, is number one, be aware, monitor. There's a tool set that I created for the U.S. Marine Corps and Navy, which has since been used by NATO and police and firefighters, called Stress First Aid. And I'm sorry, I forgot your question already.
So what is it about Stress First Aid? So what are the main points of the Stress First Aid, right?
Right. So Stress First Aid is something that's taught to non-commissioned officers, and it's like physical first aid. It's a way to help someone who's suffering, who's been injured, who maybe doesn't need formal treatment in a medical center, or maybe they could use formal treatment, but they can't get it because it's not available because you're nowhere near a hospital or whatever. So like physical first aid, it's a way of managing injuries, mitigating damage, promoting healing. And the steps are, number one, monitor. The leader's responsibility is to continuously be aware of what traumatic experiences have my team members experienced and who in particular may be most affected by those things. Because those people who have been traumatized, morally injured, almost certainly will be experiencing eruptions of anger, shame, guilt, and most importantly for the functioning of the team, they will have lost some of their ability to trust. Because those are the two primary symptoms of moral injury trauma: negative moral emotions, anger, shame, guilt, and loss of trust. So the leader's job in managing a team that has PTSD is, number one, monitoring each individual's stress level, mitigating that stress as much as you can, responding to acute eruptions of it, and the stress first aid includes steps for how to get someone to safety if they're dissociated and lost control, having a panic attack, helping them calm down, and then over time helping them recover their normal functioning through social connection, through training to regain lost competencies, because this is an important piece of trauma that a lot of people don't think about. If you have a physical injury, one of the ways you know you've been injured is you've lost function. There's something isn't working right anymore, right? You have pain and you have loss of function. So an emotional injury is the same. It's always a loss of function. So in order for a person to recover from trauma, one of the things you have to do is figure out, okay, what can you not do anymore because of shame, anger, guilt, because of dissociation, because of stress, and helping people regain those competencies so they can feel good about themselves again, so they can have hope.
They can have hope. Can you try to describe how the process looks like when you're trying to understand what functions are not available or rather not working anymore for the person with PTSD as a leader? So I know that you monitor, right? You may ask, but it's a suggestion on my side, but I think a person with PTSD, the person will say, I'm okay, I'm all right.
Of course.
Yes.
Yes. So, during the normal functioning of a very, a busy team, there may not be a lot of opportunities to really look at how any individual member of the team is functioning. But if one not only has conversations with team members, but watches how they interact with others, especially if they're, say this, a person is able to be with their family, with their friends. So in order to know how somebody's really functioning with PTSD, you need to see them in unstructured situations. You need to see how they are with their family members, with their children, with their spouse, with their friends. And maybe those losses of abilities won't become evident until sometime later when people do go back to their families and communities and then realize, wow, I used to be good at talking to strangers, but now I don't trust strangers, or whatever it is, or I used to feel more self-confident and now I don't anymore. And, you know, those things. So it's hard to see these things, but in very busy teams, but the more, the more a leader can gather this information and keep track of these things, keep track of what are the traumas, you know, a moral injury trauma does not affect everyone the same. It's all about your personal involvement. You know, what did this mean to you? Do you feel like you failed? Was there something you should have done that you didn't do? Or was there something you think I as a leader failed to do? Which is very toxic, but also very common situation of team members feeling morally injured by their leaders, either because the leaders seeking glory at the expense of their people, or the leaders just burned out. And the leader's leader doesn't recognize that this person is no longer effective.
It's like a chain reaction, right?
Yes.
So we've mentioned trust, an issue of trust, lack of trust, loss of trust, right? With PTSD, as it feels like it's one of the main missing things. Trust.
Yes.
So how does it happen that I feel like I've lost trust? Lost trust to what? To people, to myself, to my capabilities, or how does it work, this trust issue with a person with PTSD? So on what levels I feel that I don't have a trust anymore to anyone?
So my way of understanding moral injury is I believe every moral injury is a betrayal of trust in a high stakes situation. And moral injury is a two-sided coin in the sense that in any situation, I could feel betrayed by someone else, or I could feel betrayed by myself because I failed to meet my own expectations. So when the betrayal is by someone else, for example, a leader or a teammate, or a common situation in the U.S. military is a rape, sexual assault, which may be, very traumatic situation. I'm sorry, what are we talking about?
So trust, like regarding trust. Yeah.
So if the person who betrayed the trust is someone else, then obviously that person can no longer be trusted, can no longer be counted on to behave morally, to do the right thing. So it's all about goodness and evil. It's about morality and trusting to do the right thing. So if I betray my own trust because in a high stakes moment, I dissociate and I have a panic attack and someone dies because I didn't do what I needed to do, I forever will have lost trust in my ability, which is the worst kind of loss of trust, because now I don't want to be in a situation like that again, because I don't want to inflict that moral injury on myself or anyone else.
Experience this one more time, right?
Yeah. So those are loss of trust in some aspect of one's own functioning. It's often circumscribed. It's not global loss of trust, but it may be loss of trust to do the right thing under fire, or do the right thing when there's emotional conflict, or, you know, whatever it might be. You know.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Nash. Really, like to sum it all up, so what we have for now, we have the issue that we need all to tackle and to think about it, right? The PTSD for a leader, right? And how to cope with it, how to work with that, because leaders are left alone, basically, in this situation, right? We've talked about the first aid with stress response, like stress first aid response. Stress first aid response, and the basic rule of it is monitor, right? Try to monitor the interaction, the social interactions, the ability to trust a person, how the person works in a team, interacts in a team and outside of the team, right? Specifically in an unstructured situations, right? And we've talked about how the trust, the lack of trust for myself or for others really impacts a person, and how hard a challenge it is. But maybe the last question is not from the point of a person with PTSD, but from people around it, right? So how people around it, especially family and friends, people who are close, right? What is the roadmap? What is the plan? What are things to do or not to do for them with the person with PTSD, right? Maybe some help here. So what can they provide? How they should, interact with a person with PTSD?
Right. Well, that's a huge question. I want to answer first by recommending a document which is created, I think, in 2009 by the U.S. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA. They had this report, and it's available online in English only, unfortunately, but it's called Trauma-Informed Care. It's actually their view of what trauma is and how to care for people who have trauma. And it's very simple, plain language, and it's very helpful for family members and communities, and it draws attention to a lot of the things we just talked about. So number one, if I'm a family member and my husband, someone just came home and probably has PTSD, moral injury trauma, so I want to know, in what situations will this person have an eruption of intense negative moral emotions, anger, shame, guilt? Because those are the big dangers in any interaction. And those eruptions of intense emotions don't belong in those situations where they come up. That's what makes them so destructive. And as a partner with someone with PTSD, together we can strategize. Okay, what are the situations in which you're going to lose it? And how do we together manage that risk so this doesn't happen so much? Because every day a person goes without having a dissociation, they heal a little bit more. So that's, and then also trust is, in what situations does my spouse no longer trust me, trust themselves? Do they trust themselves to be a parent, to take care of the child? Maybe they don't anymore. So it's about being a partner and a team member for the person with PTSD and saying, okay, let's manage this risk together. Let's figure out how together we can minimize these disruptions and these damages.
Like I have a deja vu effect from the beginning of our talk when we mentioned that a leader is someone who takes responsibility.
Yes.
Right? So he or she feels the necessity to take the responsibility. And in this scenario you're describing, it's, again, for the partner to take responsibility.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's a great tip, and I think we need not to be afraid of the situations that may happen. We are needed to try to understand what may happen, when it may happen, and how to deal with it, right?
Correct.
And to have the plan builds together.
Right.
It helps
Correct.
to work. Mr. Nash, I'm really thankful for you being here in Lviv, Ukraine at this conference and sharing your knowledge and experience with us. And hopefully the audience will also watch our podcast and also feel that they found some hope and some tips on how the PTSD works, how PTSD impacts leaderships and leaders, right? And that there is the necessity to take the responsibility for well-being of yourself and of others who are close to you are really important. Thank you so much again for being here.
Дякую.